that I gave is that you told me the other night that you occasionally have sex with women to take their energy and
No.
balance your own chakras. Yeah, you said that how you have a one-sided view because you're only dealing with the male energy, and you said no. I occasionally have sex with women to balance my own energy and have female energy input it, right? So that's one example.
Correct, but I don't drain them of energy. In fact, I think they benefit more than I do.
So you're
Yeah,
not a
but you
vampire?
take
Wait,
your
wait, wait,
energy.
wait, wait, wait. So you're not a vampire unless you suck somebody dry?
Yeah, I don't give them my sexual energy, but I give them other forms of energy.
Yeah, but don't you get energy from them as well?
Yeah, and listen.
Isn't that in some way draining them, right? Aren't you taking their
No,
energy? I mean, you're not taking it all, right? But you're taking.
Vampires are not mere drainers.
Yeah.
The necessary condition is that they have to feel drained, which they never
Or
have.
used. Or used.
No.
And how can you tell if they felt drained or used?
Well, because they always want more.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that you don't feel used if you've had sex with someone and then you've wanted to have more afterwards. It doesn't necessarily mean that you didn't feel used in the act.
No, that's not true.
So many unhealthy relationships are based on that.
Yeah. What about battered women, right? Who have like Stockholm syndrome and that kind of shit.
There's no such thing as a battered woman.
Oh,
So basically, you have no conclusion, silent.
Yeah, but
That's
you
interesting.
have no evidence. You're just assuming this, and actually, most of them, I'm friends with, and so they don't. Like, if they were actually feeling used and drained, they wouldn't want to be my friends to hang out again.
Do you think that
you are taking their energy, right? I'm going off of what you're saying. You're saying
your
that
testimony,
you're taking
right?
their energy. I can't go off of what those girls are feeling because I don't know. I don't know how they're feeling, if they're feeling drained or if they're feeling used.
Listen,
but I do know.
Energy exchange, Layla.
I do know that you said that you took energy from them.
No, I said I receive it.
Yeah.
In an exchange, Layla. There's a key difference.
Doesn't matter. You're still taking their energy.
Don't you have to take it in order to receive it?
Absolutely matters. No, they can offer it.
And
like take implies like just like stealing, right? That's what an energy vampire does. But I've never stole any energy.
False.
Yeah, and you have no evidence. You're just assuming this because you don't.
Yeah, but
know
you're also just assuming. Tesla, stay out of this conversation, please.
Oh,
you're also just assuming. You're also just assuming that those girls didn't feel used or drained at all in any way during the act or after the act.
Are you feeling low in energy?
Someone's gonna have to mute Tesla so that Layla and Radcen can talk.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that they were, and you're assuming that they weren't. I'm assuming that they were based on your own statement that you took their energy.
Yeah, but I have actual evidence of interacting with them.
Doesn't matter. You think they wouldn't act differently around someone who stole their energy to protect themselves?
They wouldn't want to meet up again or hang out.
That doesn't necessarily follow.
Well, they wouldn't have the conversations that we've had afterwards.
You don't know that.
It's a pretty solid inference.
So is it just your intuition that you're using?
Someone can feel used, but still want to continue the relationship with the person.
Radcen, do you have any evidence that says that you're not just taking their energy, right? That they don't feel used? Other than your intuition?
In my experience?
Yeah, that would fall in with your intuition.
Not necessarily.
So all we have is your own testimony, right?
Right. And
why
all
would
you
we
have
trust?
in the other direction is even less evidence.
Why would we trust someone who we think is possibly multiple forms of an energy vampire?
I guess, how are you quantifying this transfer of energy? And how are you certain that any transfer took place?
Let's not be pedantic now.
I don't think that's pedantic at all. I think that's a very valid question.
Radcen, why would we trust your testimony that the women didn't feel used or drained when we suspect you to be multiple forms of an energy
Well,
vampire.
hold on, Layla. Hold on, Layla. Let's be fair, right? That would be basing to make that kind of claim to his like legitimacy would be to talk about like what we think about him being in other forms of vampire, right? So maybe we should prove the other forms and get back to this one.
Yeah, I guess we could.
Well,
I
hold
still
on.
think
Before we
that's a
do
pretty
that,
strong one,
I
though.
think we should establish that Layla, you are a confirmed vampire, and you're using
Confirmed vampire. He looked at her vampire card.
Based on what, Radcen?
based on your behavior. I mean, you're doing the interrogator technique right now.
Yeah, but you
Okay.
have asked
So I have it
questions
written down
about-
right now that Layla and Radcen are on opposite teams.
I think this is double vampire.
Right, but you're
This is
saying that
double-
because I asked questions to clarify an issue or get more information on a topic, but you do that same thing, Radcen. So
This
that's
is giving
another
me-
way that you're an that's another way that you're an energy vampire, Radcen.
This conversation is giving me serious secret Hitler withdrawals.
But why
Yeah,
are you
bro.
deflecting right now? Are you worried about us outing you? Is that why you're deflecting?
No, because even if I was an energy vampire, you are like defenseless little lambs that wouldn't be able to do anything about it.
Oh.
Oh,
You're
shit.
trying
Oh,
to steal
shit.
Radcen's
Was that
energy
an
right now,
admission?
dude.
You're
That's my
really
question.
lucky that I'm not.
You know what,
Yeah.
Radcen? See, I'm more generous than you are, so if you needed a little bit of my energy, I would be willing to give you some.
Oh shit.
Oh,
But why don't we get back to the why don't we
That's how
move on?
generous I am.
But Layla, why don't we move on to the second point, right? The second way
that's
he's a
trap,
vampire.
Layla.
Well,
It's a trap.
Yeah, I guess we can go on to what was the next one? Mental energy vampire. Okay, so they have a way of making you feel inferior or stupid. So the way that he undermines people's beliefs. So, like for example, he'll say that the atheists are lacking in any spiritual knowledge or enlightenment. He'll also say, okay, wait. They say you have to believe they need your help, input, or ideas. Okay, so I don't know if there's an example for that. Then
Because you just made it
they
up.
question or
Talk
judge
about it.
everything that you do. So Radcen has a habit of judging the actions of what people do in the server.
Wrong.
For example-
Listen, I only judge masturbation. If that's everything that you do, it's not my fault.
No, that's not it. So masturbation is a big one, right? If he hears that someone is masturbating, he'll automatically then just say that they are
Losing energy, yes.
yeah, losing energy, and that they need to stop doing that and start the new NoFap, right? Okay, that's one example. But he's also commented on a couple that I know of people in the servers drinking habits. So Toast and Cece.
Yeah, Toast
And-
started drinking at 12 in the afternoon.
Can you let her finish, Radcen, please? Or are you trying to steal her energy
Can you
right
let-
now by
Can you
talking
let
over
me
her?
finish silent? Can you let me finish silent?
No. You talked over her, right? Be respectful.
He is responding, dude.
I'm responding to Toast, and I'm not going
She
to let him
didn't
move on to the
finish. She
next
didn't
one.
finish.
No,
Why
go
you-
ahead. Let him respond.
Get off your white knight, silent. So, with Toast, he started drinking at noon and didn't stop until almost midnight. And he was sloppy drunk, just like Cece was. I think any good friend in that situation would implore them to get help.
And you
Okay.
judged that they needed help, right?
You vampire?
I use my discernment.
Ah, but what is discernment if not judging?
Discernment and judging are the same things.
You said they are or they
think-
aren't.
I think the fourth one is. I think the first and the fourth one are the strongest
They are
forms
not.
of energy vampire. That
How are
Radcen
well,
is.
hold on, Layla. How are they not the same thing? Can you give me a meaningful
Silent, you're a
distinction?
legend, dude. Silent, you are a legend. Amazing, dude.
Radcen, my question.
Yeah, I have the perfect image to show you the difference. Hold on.
I think at
Uh,
times we're all
summarize.
energy sucking vampires in here. We just
Because
take turns
because
latching onto the neck.
hold on, because I just I just looked up the Google definition of discernment, and the first thing it says is the ability to judge well. So that seems that you're just saying that you're judging well, but you'd still be judging to do that, right?
Of course, Silent. There is good judgment and bad judgment.
Why do houseplants talk? I don't understand why in this server we have a houseplant that talks.
Sorry, you legend.
Radcen, can you tell me the archetype of the vampire yet?
Right, and so the difference between judgment is think that you're God, and
I forced him back to the topic.
That's the image that he just. Good stuff.
But that seems to be a false definition, right? It seems that you're trying to put it to lead us off the trail, because the dictionary definition, right, is the ability to judge well.
Right, to pass a judgment implies that you're willing to carry out the sentence. I'm just using my discernment to make suggestions that might improve someone's life. That's
But in
completely
order to
different.
discern, right, you have to be able to judge, correct?
Well, you have to be able to understand between the similarities and differences between two situations. One being whether someone's an alcoholic or just drinking too much.
Well, what is the definition of judge?
See, now you're being pedantic.
Let's
No,
not
no,
go
no.
down this definition wormhole. I think the mental energy one is the weakest one, but I'll continue to tally up examples as you continue to be here on this server, Radcen. But the
I'm
spiritual.
going to continue to tally your concessions.
Well, hold on, but
So
hold
go
on, Layla. Right, this is really relevant, and I'll be done with definitions hopefully after this. But to
Okay.
judge is to form an opinion, right? As a verb, to form an opinion or conclusion about something. That's the dictionary definition, right? So you're forming an opinion about somebody in order to figure out whether or not they're an alcoholic, correct?
Wrong.
Can you explain how you're not forming an opinion or a conclusion about them?
Right, like if someone looks, like, they have a medical condition, you say, hey, you look terrible, you should go to a doctor and get that checked out or something. Doesn't mean that you've made an opinion that they're sick. It's just that there's something that they should look into.
No.
You didn't hear what he said, fucking Radcen.
No. You've made an opinion that they see that they look like they're sick, right? You haven't made the opinion that they are sick, but that they look like they're sick, correct? You've still formed an opinion.
Right, of course, and in that way,
So in that way,
everything
there's
is-
no meaningful distinction between judging and discernment.
Yeah, but the way that you're using the word judging, is trivially true. I judge that you are capable of hearing the words that are coming out of my mouth. It doesn't make me a judgmental person when I'm talking to you.
I didn't say that you were judgmental, right? But what was it, Layla? Something about to judge, correct? And then you tried to make a distinction between judging and discernment.
I believe it was. Let me pull it up again.
Right? Do you understand what I'm
They
saying,
question or judge. Yeah.
Yeah, so to tell someone that they're an alcoholic or to view that they're an alcoholic is to judge, right? It's to form an opinion about them that they're an alcoholic, right?
I can concede that, but that's not the full definition of what it means to be a mental energy vampire.
No, that's true, right? But that's just one aspect of which you fall into that category, correct?
It's not sufficient.
I never said it was sufficient. I said it's one aspect, correct?
I'm just clarifying that it's not sufficient. Yes, it's an aspect.
What is the
Okay,
rest?
great.
What's the rest? What is the archetype of a fucking vampire, man?
I'll post it again. There are several types of vampire, Ben.
What's the archetype of vampire?
Stealing energy.
Then what is the point of saying energy vampire? Just say vampire.
Because some vampires do it through blood.
What?
Some vampires actually drink blood.
But they're still energy vampires. They're just blood energy vampires.
Not necessarily, but okay.
You said vampires steal energy, fuckwit.
This is true.
We don't have to say call somebody a fuckwit.
So Layla, you had more evidence? Or is Layla AFK right now? Maybe she's AFK.
She's got no other evidence.
So, is everybody a vampire? Is that the... Are we done?
It seems that
If you
everybody
steal
would
energy,
be.
yes.
Seems that everybody, by definition, every human would be a mental energy vampire, right?
No, because I just told you judgment isn't a sufficient. It isn't sufficient.
All you have to do is steal energy.
Parameter.
Right, that's what it means to be a vampiric in any
But
given
what
moment.
if you were energy vampire and you just didn't realize it?
Most people are in that situation, Molly.
So perhaps you could be in that situation, right?
No, because I'm hyper aware of the dynamic.
What the fuck?
Oh.
I'm hyper aware of the dynamic of energy transfer.
So maybe we should go through, right?
So you're like a vampire slayer.
That would be really cool. But no, I can't claim that title, although I wish I could. I do my best.
So I guess we can go through the other parts of mental energy vampire, right? They have a way of making you feel inferior or stupid. Can we think of basically everyone who's done this at some point in their life? Or is there some other criteria?
It's reminiscent of John John. They have some type of way of making you feel this.
Right, like everyone's lied before, right? But that's a totally different thing than being a pathological liar, right? An energy vampire is a pathological energy thief.
Oh, okay. So wouldn't you say like every single boss at work during the time that they've like any bad boss, right? Who's not been able to like communicate well to their employees and stuff, and it makes them feel bad about themselves because they're not really good at communicating, would be considered an energy vampire, right? During the time in which they're a boss.
Absolutely. I think a lot of energy vampires, consciously or subconsciously, work themselves into those positions of power, because they can do that without society branding them or being looked down upon by society, because it's accepted.
So that's going to be like at least like what 5 or 10% of the human population that's going to immediately meet the mental energy vampire standards by just by that standard, right?
Well, there are lots of good bosses that don't do that, but yeah, I would say
Sure,
at least
sure.
5 to 10% of people are energy vampires.
Sure, and so the second part, right? That they set you up to believe they need your help, input, or ideas. Then when you step up to the plate, they undermine your efforts. So doesn't this happen in a lot of spousal relationships where people get undermined?
Oh yes, I'm sure Layla's husband feels that way.
Oh God.
So what do you think? How many percentage of marriages do you think involve mental energy vampires?
Oh man, I'm not a statistician. I haven't.
Just a rough guess.
I would say probably the same figure that you gave. I mean, 5 to 10%.
I think honestly, like every person is at least one type of vampire if you're going by this arbitrary list and arbitrary classification of what the transfer of energy is.
Yeah, so I mean, like, this is just mental energy, right? They question or judge everything you do. Couldn't you say like every old person can basically fit under this? I mean, there's so many old people who are super judgmental, right? They're just in their older age, they act like that.
Yeah, well, when they are getting older in age, right, they need more energy because they're dying, and that's one way that their subconscious says, I need more energy. How am I going to get it? And
So
then they
now
do
we're
this.
trying to justify their vampire activities.
Yeah,
It's not justifying.
why would we be justifying that, Radcen?
I'm not justifying it. I'm just explaining what would actually compel them to act this way.
Got it. So, that's probably going to meet what? What do you think? Like 25% of the population is a mental energy vampire by these stats?
Oh no, there are plenty of old people who are just lovely people who would never.
I didn't
do
say
that. I mean,
25% of old people, right? I said 25% of the human population, right?
No, I didn't say that. I said that old people. Yeah, I mean 25%. Sure, okay. In one form or another, consciously or unconsciously, it's not far fetched.
Right. So, what about what about emotional energy vampire, right? Don't we know a lot of people who are emotional vampires, right? You have to make them feel better or fix them, comfort them, or make them feel safe. Wouldn't we see like basically every child falls into that?
Yeah, babies are emotional vampires.
Well, I mean, they definitely fit the definition of a parasite.
Yeah, that's why they're energy vampires.
And like, wouldn't you say like they often use guilt to keep you engaged with their needs? Don't a lot of mothers use like guilt tripping in order to keep people doing what they want?
Yes, absolutely.
So wouldn't that be another like 25% of the population between basically every child and a good number of mothers? I mean, like, what percentage would you say that would be?
Depends. I mean, if they're doing it for the energy, which some mothers I'm sure they do, or they're just doing it to correct the behavior, it's a different story. Right?
Wait, but why would intent be relevant, Radcen? Because you said conscious or unconscious, right? It doesn't really matter whether or not they're aware that they're vampires, right? That they're vampires. They could be unconscious, right?
I made the distinction between a pathological liar, one who lies habitually and all the time and can't control themselves, and one who is just a regular person who's told some lies, right? Like a mother who might guilt the children sometimes so that they can correct the behavior. That's not an energy vampire. One that chronically does it all the time in order to get energy, I would classify as a vampire.
Yeah, but I asked you really specifically, right? I said, isn't there a lot of mothers who do this all the time to keep their children and their husbands doing what they want? Just a lot of people in general guilt trip all the time, don't they? They use it as an emotional tactic, right? They're emotional energy vampires.
I guess so, but I couldn't put a number on it.
Okay. Well, let's just say it's going to be another good chunk, right, of the population, would you say? Not to put a number on it.
I see where you're going with this, and it's entirely possible that over 50% of the population are energy vampires, chronic energy vampires, because we live in a profoundly sick society.
Okay. Well, what about sexual energy vampires, right? Wouldn't every woman be a sexual energy vampire, basically?
Wouldn't every man?
No. The women take from the men, right? So the men would be providing, right?
No, they exchange.
Or do they
exchange?
Well,
Mainly does anyway.
So how would we determine like what people would be a sexual energy vampire or not? Is there like a math equation where, like, you take more than you lose, than you give?
No. When a man and a woman are performing sexual intercourse and they're exchanging their energies, the energies combined and greater than the sum of the parts, and so they both gain instead of losing.
But I thought you said that you didn't ejaculate inside of women or with having sex with women because that would take your energy, right?
Correct. I don't do that.
So if both parties ejaculate and the man ejaculates with the woman, then she'd be taking his energy, right?
No, they would be both. I mean, let me post a picture to explain this to you.
Out comes the memes.
Join my server, I finger kids. Interesting.
Right. So you see, Silent, the cycle, like the circuit of energy.
You got it.
Right.
Yeah, I see the
It's
circle from penis to forehead.
those are the chakras, and so basically, it's the circuit of energy. Basically, your chakras are like a line, but when you twist your body and you have sexual intercourse in that manner with another person, those two, both of your chakras form a circuit of energy that flows between you. And so when both of you contribute to that circuit, right, it's like um, overcharging a circuit with more energy. So both of the people end up having more than they started with.
Oh, okay. But how do we determine, like, okay, so if that's the case, right, then is it just, so if a woman doesn't ejaculate and a man does, are you saying that, like, she would be an energy vampire?
She's not enjoying it. She's not fully surrendering herself to the union of the souls. Then no, she's not.
And what about in the opposite, right? If the
What
man
if-
didn't ejaculate, would
What if
the woman be
exclusive-
taking from the man?
What if you
Same thing.
exclusively fuck missionary?
Well, no.
I mean,
Well,
there has to
specific.
be a connection between.
Well, we'll get that. Well, that wasn't my question, right? I understand that you should probably have a connection with the person before you have sex with them, right? I mean, we can go through sex ed, right? I think we both agree on that. But I'm asking specifically, right? Like, what if you said if the woman doesn't ejaculate and the man does or doesn't, orgasm, however you would like
Are
to
you
call
going
it.
somewhere with this, counselor?
So as I was saying, then what about the man, right? What about if the man doesn't orgasm but the woman does? Would she be stealing from him?
Overruled.
If the man doesn't orgasm, but the woman does, would she be stealing from him? Is that your question?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No, he would be stealing from her.
But how so? But wouldn't it work the same way?
Oh,
Why doesn't it work the same way in reverse?
I mean, yeah, I mean, no, that's not what I said.
Well, but I asked you, right? I said, oh, let me see if I can get the exact wording of the question. I said, if the woman doesn't ejaculate and the man does, then would she be stealing from him? You said yes, right? That's the case.
Oh, yes, you're right. Yes.
So then, why wouldn't it work in reverse then?
Because the man is the primary generator of sexual energy.
Okay, so what are the cases in which the woman would be having sex? They'd be having sex, but she wouldn't be taking energy from him. Like, she wouldn't be an energy vampire.
Oh, well, it's also up to the responsibility of the man as well, not to give his energy freely.
No.
Right? There's nothing she can do about that. But
oh, okay. What's the difference? Like what would be what we see, right? What would be the difference between a man giving and then a woman taking from the man? How would we know the difference?
Well, so you're saying, what would it look like for a woman to not steal
right
a man's sexual energy during sex?
You got it. 100%. That's what I'm asking.
That's a very good question, Silence. I mean, I guess, I could go into semantics of the word steal, right? Steal involves not having consent, but I won't do that because I think you were trying to ask, is there any, what would a situation look like for the sum of her, the woman's energy to be zero or negative in an interaction, right?
Yeah, how would I just be able to tell the difference, right? I'm just trying to be able to differentiate between the two, like, situations.
I don't think it happens very often. Maybe if yeah, I don't know.
Well, if you don't know, that's
probably
okay.
It's a very rare situation.
Okay. So would you say that the vast majority of cases the woman is taking energy from the man?
Yes, I would say so.
Okay. Um, and then, so I guess the final one, we've been to the first three, I guess, in reverse order, but the spiritual energy vampire, right? Wouldn't every atheist and agnostic who like asks somebody else a lot about like God, their God and religion and what they believe, wouldn't they're all they're all spiritual energy vampires, right?
But how so?
I'm just trying to understand it. Is that the case, or would that not be the case?
Who would be a spiritual energy vampire?
Every atheist and agnostic who asks other people, asks theists about their beliefs.
Not necessarily. However, it really does depend on the manner in which they do their inquiries. I would say the majority of them, yes.
Okay. What about like a Muslim who questions the faith of a Christian? Would they be energy vampires when they do that?
Yes, it's possible.
So
Again, it depends on how they're doing it, right?
So
If
would
they're
you?
asking a genuine question in order to further their own understanding without any antagonism behind their questions or any ulterior motives other than just understanding and engaging them in good faith, then yeah, they're probably energy vamping.
So they have to. So the requirement is them engaging in good faith.
Yeah, with the purpose of understanding and yeah, having a good faith conversation where both interlocutors respect each other and polite and friendly.
What about like street preachers, right? Or someone preaching or trying to convert others, right? That's their goal. Like you know how like Mormons get sent out as like kids from the age of 18 to 20 to like go
Well,
out
it
and preach.
depends on the style, right? If someone like Christian Hillbilly were to get on the street and say, "Repent to perish, you're all sinful," you know, Westboro Baptist Church style, negativity, that would be energy vampiring. But if you were to get a pastor who went on the street corner and just said, Jesus loves you, come talk to us if you need any help, we're here for you, and here's a Bible, that's not energy vampire.
Got it.
That's not.
Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So I guess maybe we should go through the list of who is and who isn't a sexual energy vampire, right? And like correct me where I'm wrong, because I don't want to like misstate your beliefs.
I can't know for sure until I've had sex with the person.
Oh, okay, right, but you said that like almost all women, and you couldn't think of what it would look like, but let's assume that there are going to be some exceptions, right? But you said
I would
almost all
say
women are going to be sexual energy vampires, right?
no. I said at the majority, so at least 51%. I would be confident in saying,
Okay, okay, um, but you couldn't think of like a time when it wouldn't happen, but you can imagine it could happen, or it does happen.
well, some women just don't like sex.
Sure. Sure, but you said that if the woman doesn't orgasm, right? If like she just goes through the motions, but the man does orgasm, she doesn't really like the sex. That she would be an energy vampire in that case, right?
Uh, Actually, probably not. And the more I think about it, in that case, if she's not into it, she's probably not an energy vampire. It's probably the man who's doing it.
But wouldn't she? I'm just trying to understand. Wouldn't she be receiving energy from the man when he orgasms?
No, you have to actually want the energy. I don't think it would be efficiently incorporated into her chakras if she wasn't enjoying it or desiring it.
Wow. This is just beyond me.
Okay. Okay. I think we've gone through, right, but I think it seems to me, right, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like the majority of the human race is an energy vampire. Do you disagree with
Well,
that?
I mean, it's like saying the majority of the human race are pathological liars. I would say it really depends on how you define pathological. I mean, we've all lied. I wouldn't call all of us pathological liars. Say unconsciously, a lot of us behave as though we're energy vampires, especially if we have, you know, an underlying mental illness or, you know, some trauma or personality disorder.
Well, let's just do it. Let's just like kind of think it out, and we're being conceptual here, right? Like we're not being exact. But you said at least 51% of all women are sexual energy vampires, right?
Yeah, I would be confident with that number.
So that would be like 25% of the human race, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And you said like all children are going to be, what was it? Emotional energy vampires, right? Because they need care and they're parasites essentially.
Children are a little different. They kind of need the attention in order to survive, and it's you know, freely given by the parents. This, you know, they obviously want to keep the child alive. It's not really consciously aware.
Right, but we made the distinction before, right? And you said that whether it's conscious or unconscious, they'd still be being vampiric, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're right. You've identified a gray area, which is children.
No.
No, that
Okay,
would
so the
be
conclusion
gray,
is
right?
there
That's
are a lot of vampires.
But
That's
you said that they're you know that children are energy vampires, that they're parasites. I mean, you literally call them parasites, right?
I didn't say that I think they are. I said that some people have.
You said they met the
referred to
definition
it that
of
way.
parasite.
Yeah, I said they might meet the definition of parasite, and some people might call them that.
You just said that they met the definition.
Yeah, but I wouldn't call them a parasite, right? The definition of parasite is very broad.
Well, if it's
But
very,
they
if
are
it's-
energy vampires.
Go ahead, Ben.
Well, if anything, a child would have to be an energy vampire. That's all they do.
Yeah. How could we have energy vampires if kids aren't them?
I mean, I love my kids, but when they were little, please, they were some major energy sucking vampires.
Yeah,
So-
you're right, Molly.
So the very older energy vampires, the extremely younger energy vampires, people that are sexually active are energy vampires. We're running out of gray areas.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I was just kind of trying to understand. It seems to me, right, that calling someone a vampire is almost like calling them. Well, you're kind of human, right? You're flawed like most humans are. Isn't that kind of synonymous based on these categories?
No, I think that a lot of people, and I would probably, a very, very, if not most people, then a very large majority of people in the server alone are not energy vampires.
Seems to me what you're describing is more of a parasite than a vampire.
Give me an example of someone that you wouldn't characterize as a vampire.
Well, a vampire would be somebody that's like a parasite, but a more active like a parasite. I think of as something that's like passive leeching.
Who isn't a vampire? Question.
Gotta be a parasite though.
Well, hold on, but Radcen
would need you to sustain. You know that
Yo,
parasite
Radcen, am I a fucking vampire?
will latch onto you for its survival. So, if they're needing your energy to survive, would they not be more parasitic than anything else?
But Radcen said that there's a number of people in this server who aren't vampiric. Who would you say
You
aren't
could
vampiric?
probably use parasite and a vampire somewhat interchangeably. But Jovan, I don't think you are.
Why don't you think
Oh.
Jovan is?
So Jovan, are you at all sexually
Well,
active?
I'm not a
on,
vampire.
Hold on. This is a question for Radcen. Why don't you think Jovan is not a vampire? Sorry, that's double negative, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean he doesn't fit any of the criteria of the that I laid out, and
Okay.
What's that criteria again?
Jovan, do you do you question people's theistic beliefs, like their connections to
Yeah.
God? Would you say you do that often or like rarely?
Often.
So he'd be a spiritual energy vampire, right, Radcen?
I think Jovan engages in good faith.
What about
Would you agree with me, Jovan?
You got me there, man.
Or are you just no? Listen, Jovan, are you trying to like belittle and try to like pwn a theist, or are you actually trying to engage him in good faith?
The latter.
But
Yeah.
hold on, Radcen. But that's not what the definition for types of vampire says, right? It just says the spiritual energy vampire, they attempt to undermine your personal connection to God, right? Jovan said he often attempts to undermine people's personal connection to God, right?
I don't think he attempts to undermine them so much as try to engage in good faith, and if the faith is
Well, I mean, that's a
undermined,
direct consequence of what I'm doing.
Yeah, isn't
right,
that
but
isn't
I
it?
don't think that's your objective.
Would it
Well,
matter? Because I would know the consequences.
It
would
does
that be
because
the
it
difference? But
manifests
hold on,
in the
Radcen.
tactics you use,
But
Jovan.
wouldn't that be a difference between conscious and unconscious vampire that we've already agreed doesn't matter, right?
Right.
No. An unconscious vampire could engage in bad faith. That's what would make them a vampire.
You said could, right? But my understanding, right, was that it doesn't matter whether they're conscious or unconscious. That's correct, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So Jovan is saying, right, that that maybe he unconsciously like undermines people's connection to God by questioning their beliefs, even though it's in good faith.
Yeah, the in good faith part is what separates him from the vampire.
Why does it need to be in good faith? It doesn't say anything about good faith in the definition that you provided in this meme.
Well, that's not the end-all be-all of explanations, but it does say something along those lines. Hold on, let me check.
It just says the spiritual energy vampire, weird language, they attempt to undermine your personal connection to God. They undermine you using threats or punishment. They constantly make you feel unsafe or on steady ground.
There you go. Jovan has never used any threats or punishments or tried to make anyone feel unsafe or try to make them uncomfortable. He just asks questions in a very polite and good faith way.
But wouldn't he be making people feel uncomfortable when he would be undermining their connection to God and making them feel unsteady in their faith?
No.
Yeah, it's not really up to him
A very polite way is pushing it.
Yeah, but so are you saying they have to? We didn't get that on our conversation before, and we kind of went through the categories, but now you're saying they have to be using threats and punishment, and they have to make you feel unsafe, and they have to be feeling on unsteady ground, and they have to undermine your personal connection to God. They have to meet all these requirements?
I don't necessarily think that when Jovan asks a question to a theist that he's going to undermine the faith. I think it's just as likely that it'll make it stronger, because if they actually think about their faith more, it could grow stronger.
No, but that's
that
not what I
outcome is
asked you.
depending on the victim.
But that's not what I asked you, right? So they but do you have to meet every single one of these listed qualities? How many of these qualities do you have to meet in order to be a vampire?
I would say at least more than half.
How do you know they have to meet more than half?
Probably more than 80%.
More than 80%. So you said, let me see if I can get this straight. So for emotional energy vampire, right? Someone has to meet 80% of this by saying they have to get you to feel responsible and make you feel better and fix them and comfort them.
Violet, where are we going with this? It's been a long time now.
Well,
Yeah, it has. It has. It's been a
sure.
now.
It's been a long conversation, sure, but
Counselor,
I'm just
Where are we
trying
going?
to
Where are we going with
to
this?
understand. How do you know that it's 80%?
oh my God, dude.
Because it seems that when we had the earlier conversation, right, we weren't talking about 80% or the amount to which someone like needs to meet the certain number of criteria, right? It was just if they meet the criteria and they have some kind of bad faith and that they do it consistently, right? If they meet one of these criteria consistently, then they'd be vampires, right? That was what I understood, right? Correct me if I'm wrong about our previous conversation.
It's a
Okay,
description
Simon.
rather
You said-
than a requirement.
I appreciate that you're trying to suck my energy right now, but it's not working, and so just give it up. Try
Oh.
someone else.
Oh, wait, but hold on. I mean, Layla could talk to you about you taking energy, right? So, I think you're an energy vampire. You think I'm an energy vampire. I don't think that's going to be a meaningful way to end the or do you? Or are you just kind of done?
I would rather poll the room because I have enough.
Hello, am I audible?
Cut out.
Oh, alright.
Yeah, I have enough energy to go all night, but that wouldn't be considerate to the rest of the room, who I'm sure are bored to tears right now.
Does somebody else want to talk about something else?
Yeah, let's talk about the Gettier experiment.
All right.
Ben,
Well,
Ben, what the fuck you doing?
we'll pause it there, I guess.
Radcen, you don't